depending on your body, whether you're a skinny person or you're a fat person or you're someone somewhere in between, and depends on how, have you eaten or not eaten, like suhoor before the morning. So during the day, you might get hungry, you might get thirsty, you might get tired. So naturally we start whinging and we start nagging. I'm tired, I'm this, I'm that, I wish I could do this, I wish I could do that. This defeats the purpose of fasting, because fasting is an action where we need to endure, where we need to have more patience, where we need to carry on the burden and the pain and keep it to ourselves. Not to go around and just say, oh, I'm this, I'm that. No, that's not required. Because it is like, as much as it is a war with us and the shaitan, this is a war with us and our body. I'm trying to control my senses. So if I start whinging all the time and I'm complaining all the time, then I'm not doing much. So the idea of fasting is what? That we endure the pain for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is something that's also recommended. Among the adequates of the month of Ramadan and any other days if a person fasts, he is needed to keep that to himself, that he's fasting. Because sometimes a person comes and says, oh, I'm fasting. Oh, I'm fasting this. I can't do this because I'm fasting. I shouldn't do this because I'm fasting. They always mention the fact that they are fasting, as if they're doing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a favor. You know what? I'm fasting for you. What else do you want from me? Right? We shouldn't put it in this way, where we're always reminding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or those around us that we are fasting as if we are doing Allah a favor. That we should not do. So hide the fact that you are fasting. Keep it to yourself. You don't need to mention it. All right? Number 5, it's recommended for a person who's fasting to put perfume and have perfume and smell nice. Because during the fasting period, a person might, things happen in his body and fat melts and stuff like that. So sometimes the mouth might have a bit of odor to it, especially if a person does not take care of his hygiene in his mouth and does not brush. So to have a bit of perfume, just to have that smell, that nice smell that makes people comfortable around you, right? And especially for the ladies, make sure you don't put perfume and go outside. That's a no-go zone. That's a haram altogether. Inside the house, or for men, have perfume, smell nice, which is a good adequate of those who are fasting. The Prophet ﷺ says, perfume is the gift of a faster. So if you want to have a gift, then put perfume on. Number 6, feeding people in the month of Ramadan. This is one of the recommendations that a person needs to do. And I spoke about this in the first few nights, maybe in Arabic, not in English, but we said, because we live in a country where pretty much we don't have needy people, we don't have homeless people living in the streets or people who are hungry that we need to feed. But it's good to keep yourself or put yourself in the habit of taking charity, or what we call sadaqah, and putting it in a box. Like, for example, take $2 a day and put it in a box. By the end of the month, give it to the masjid or give it to those who donate that money to those who are in need. You need to practice that fact or that act of giving to others. So every day, before iftar or during iftar, put $2 in the box as a sadaqah that it will go to others with the intentional niyyah of trying to feed those who are in need. And number 7, and the last one, is if you come to break your fast, because sometimes it becomes a battle. Should I eat before I pray or pray before I eat? Which one is more recommended? Which one will perfect my fasting? And the Prophet ﷺ and the Ahl-Bayt, they always say, make sure you pray, then eat. If you pray and eat, your reward of fasting will be much more. And your reward of your salah, your prayer will be also Allah. So what you do is, if it's adhan time, brush your teeth, eat a bit of dates, 2-3 dates, not too much, drink a bit of water, and then go pray, right? Pray, finish your prayer, and not to run, not just to race so you can get to the meal. No, take your time, pray comfortably. Once you finish, you go eat, and you eat comfortably. Because sometimes if you eat before you pray, your mind always make you feel guilty. I should have prayed first. I should do this first. And then once you eat, you're too heavy, you're bloated, and your stomach is full, and you can't even be bothered getting up to pray. So always pray before you eat. This is the last one. When it comes to things we are not recommended to do, there are things we should avoid doing while we're fasting, right? So I'll mention a few. Once or when a person is fasting, the first, especially if you're not a lot of people don't practice the act of fasting throughout the year. So a lot of people don't fast, they only fast during the month of Ramadan. So what happens is, for those who don't know how it feels to be fasting, when they start fasting the month of Ramadan, the number one problem they face is anger, right? So they're hungry, they have a headache, they feel fatigued, they feel tired, so they're very ticky. Once a person says something to them, they blow up. Don't talk to me, I'm fasting. The mother starts arguing, and the father starts arguing, the kids start killing each other. What's the point of fasting? So what you need to do is, you need to control your anger, right? So you need to avoid disputes, arguments, and swearing, right? That's something needs to be controlled. Otherwise, it defeats the purpose of fasting. So keep your anger to minimum. And you do that by not arguing and not having disputes with your siblings, with your friends, or with your parents. That's one. Two, it's not recommended for people to come and read poetry, because unless it is for the love of the Ahl-Bayt, salamullah alayhim, then it is okay. But if it's just, love poetry and what have you, that's just not recommended to be done in this month. So one needs to stay away from that. Brushing your teeth while you're fasting, while the toothbrush itself is wet. So sometimes people, they go to the tap, they wet the brush and they start brushing the teeth even during the day. That's something you should not do, because if you do swallow that wetness from that brush, that could break your fast. So that's not something not recommended. Keep brushes away from you during the day when you are fasting. Also, rinsing your mouth. A lot of people, they just go and they just rinse their mouth for no reason. Unless you're doing wudu, because during wudu is mustahab, it's recommended to brush or to go and put water in your mouth and clean your mouth, then yes. If it's any other time, you should not do so. You should not rinse your mouth, because if you swallow it by accident, that could also break your fast. So you need to stay away from that. Giving blood. During the month of Ramadan, one might be generous and he says, you know what, I'm just going to go donate to the Red Cross. You shouldn't do that, because that will make you feel weak. That will weaken your body and weaken you from fasting, so that you should not do. All right? Inhaling or smelling flowers, that's not recommended. So we said it's recommended to put perfume, but to go around smelling flowers, that is not recommended. Also, depends, because we're in winter, so we don't do this, but sometimes when the weather is hot, we wet our clothes and we wear them, just to keep our bodies cold or cool. This is also not a recommended act to do. And lastly, I would end with this, having a full stomach. When it comes to eating, you eat so much that your stomach becomes full. That's something that we should not do. It's not recommended, because that will prevent us from communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A few things I'll mention quickly, and then inshallah we end. So we understood that we need to fast. We understood that the recommendations of fasting and things which are not recommended. Now, what are the benefits of fasting? So I'm going to go through them quickly. Why are we fasting? What do we get? Well, first of all, and this is something that everyone gets when you fast, the physical benefits of it, right? So those who fast, they become a lot healthier. And you see this practice being done not only by Muslims, but by a lot of people. They fast for the sake of their health. So the Prophet ﷺ, he says, fast and you'll be healthy, right? So one of the benefits that we get, regardless of whether we like it or not, our bodies become a lot healthier once we are fasting. Number two benefit we get from fasting is that sometimes we get to feel how others feel, right? So a person wrote a letter to Imam Hassan al-Askari, and he said to him, for what reason did Allah make fasting compulsory? Why did Allah make it compulsory? And the Imam salamullah alayhi, he replied, he says, God had made fasting compulsory so that the rich should find the pain of hunger, so that they have mercy upon the poor. So when you are fasting and you feel hungry, you should think and contemplate about those who are less fortunate than you, those who don't have food, those who don't have water, those who don't have even a house to live in. So a lot of people, millions of people around the world, they don't have what we have. So through the process of hunger, we get to feel. So the month of Ramadan gives us that opportunity to have that social equilibrium, that social equity between us and others. So we need to feel more. And also there are many social benefits to the month of Ramadan. It brings people together, it makes people happier together. It even in some countries, it reduces the crime rate. A lot of countries, the crime rate goes a lot lower during the month of Ramadan, so there are a lot of benefits. And lastly, the main benefit that we get from the month of Ramadan or from fasting is that our spirituality, our souls elevate themselves. So like I've said this in the last few nights, the less you eat, the more your spirit will elevate, right? The only thing that holds down our spirits, that hold down our beliefs, that hold down our souls is the fact that we are too attached to the dunya, too attached to the material world. So we eat too much, we sleep too much, we relax too much. Therefore our souls, they go nowhere, they just remain. So once we stop eating, once we deprive ourselves from eating and drinking and food and all the things that make us happy, then our souls are more lighter. They are easier to fly and to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And ultimately, this is the goal of fasting. Now there are other benefits to fasting. I'll quickly go through them. Fasting is one of the things that teaches us how to be punctual, to be always on time. So you always have a time to stop fasting and there's a time you have to start eating. Precise on the dot. You can't say, well, maybe 5 minutes and 10 minutes and then I'll stop. No. It teaches you how to be punctual, always on time. You cannot eat, you cannot drink at that time. At that time you can drink. So this is one of the benefits that we get to learn. Also we get to learn to be patient, right? So I'm hungry, I'm seeing food, I'm seeing things, and I can eat. No one is holding me. Let's say there's no one watching. I can eat, I can do everything, but then I don't. Why? Because I know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. So that teaches me one. It teaches me how to be a person who is patient. So it teaches us patience. And lastly, we get to learn to be content. We get to learn to be happy. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides and whatever He wants, we do it, and we are not complaining at all. So this is a state of contentment that we also get out of the month of Ramadan and out of fasting. Inshallah, we will continue tomorrow. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة على محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.